Welcome to On This Day, the channel where the heartbeat of Africa's past echoes in the present. February isn't just the shortest month, it's packed with some of the most defining moments in African political history. So let's jump into a timeline of bold speeches, powerful uprisings, game-changing reforms, and the leaders who made headlines, all in February. February 3rd, 1960. The wind of change blows through South Africa. In the hallowed halls of South Africa's Parliament in Cape Town, British Prime Minister Harold Macmillan delivered a speech that would go down in history. The wind of change is blowing through this continent. It was a warning to the apartheid government and a declaration to the world. Africa's independence movements were real, growing, and unstoppable. While white South African leaders bristled, across the continent, nationalist leaders like Kwame Nkrumah and Julius Nyerere took heart. The empire had spoken. Its time was running out. February 4th, 1961. The start of Angola's war for independence. In the early morning, armed Angolan nationalists attacked Portuguese prisons and police posts in Luanda. It was the beginning of a brutal, decades-long struggle for freedom. Portugal would respond with force, sparking the Angolan War of Independence, a conflict that would eventually become entangled in the Cold War. From this day, Angola's path to sovereignty and future civil war was sealed in blood and fire. February 5th, 1991. Zaire opens to political pluralism. For over 25 years, Mobutu Sese Seko ruled Zaire like a monarch, banning opposition and hoarding wealth. But on this day, under growing pressure, he legalized opposition political parties. It was a symbolic gesture. Mobutu would continue to cling to power. But for millions of Congolese citizens, the door to democracy had cracked open. February 6, 1952. King George VI dies, Queen Elizabeth II becomes monarch. Why does this matter for Africa? Because Elizabeth became queen just as anti-colonial movements across the continent were accelerating. Her reign would witness the fall of the British Empire in Africa, from Ghana's independence in 1957 to Zimbabwe's in 1980. Her ascent marked the start of the empire's final act. February 11, 1990. Nelson Mandela walks free. After 27 years of imprisonment, the world held its breath as Nelson Mandela walked hand in hand with Winnie Mandela out of Victor Verster prison. Our march to freedom is irreversible. South Africa was on a new path, a long, painful journey toward dismantling apartheid. February 12, 1961. Cameroon becomes a federal republic. French-speaking Cameroon had gained independence in 1960, but 1 year later, the British-administered Southern Cameroons voted in a UN-backed plebiscite to join their neighbors, forming a Federal Republic of Cameroon. This unification was supposed to bring unity, but tensions over language, marginalization, and autonomy have since fueled decades of political unrest, especially in the English-speaking regions. February 13, 1984, anti-government uprising in Togo. After decades of authoritarian rule under Gnassingbé Eyadema, protests erupted across Togo on this day. Citizens, students, and trade unions took to the streets demanding reforms. Though the uprising was violently suppressed, it planted the seeds of civil resistance that would flare up again in the 1990s and 2000s. February 18, 2005, Uganda removes presidential term limits. Parliament, dominated by President Yoweri Museveni's allies, voted to amend the constitution, abolishing term limits. Museveni, who came to power in 1986 as a liberator, now entrenched himself as a fixture in Ugandan politics. Critics called it the death of democracy, while supporters claimed it was necessary for stability. Either way, a dangerous regional precedent was set. February 21, 1965, Malcolm X assassinated. On this day, Malcolm X was shot dead in New York, but his influence echoed far beyond America's borders. In 1964, he had toured Africa, meeting with Nasser in Egypt, Nkrumah in Ghana, and leaders in Nigeria, Kenya, and Tanzania. His dream? A united African and African-American struggle for justice. In Ghana, flags were flown at half-mast. In Cairo, he was remembered as a brother. In Nigeria, students marched in mourning. February 24, 1966. Coup in Ghana overthrows Kwame Nkrumah. While on a peace mission to Vietnam, Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana's founding father and Pan-African champion, was ousted in a military coup. The man who led Ghana to independence became a man without a country. Though he died in exile, Nkrumah's vision of a united Africa would inspire generations of thinkers and revolutionaries. February 27, 2011, Burkina Faso protests ignite. When student Justin Zongo died in police custody, the streets of Koudougou exploded with fury. What began as outrage over one death turned into a broader demand for justice, education, and dignity. It was the beginning of a wave that would eventually lead to the 2014 revolution, the one that toppled President Blaise Compaoré after 27 years in power. February 28, 1972. Idi Amin expels British advisors from Uganda. In yet another sign of his growing paranoia and nationalism, President Idi Amin expelled over 500 British military and technical advisors. Amin accused Britain of neo-colonial interference. Within months, he would expel over 40,000 Asians, collapse the economy, and turn Uganda into a dictatorship marked by terror. February marked the beginning of that dangerous spiral. From liberation to coups, uprisings to unity, February has been anything but quiet in Africa's political journey. These dates are not just history, they're reminders of struggle, triumph, resistance, and the ever-changing face of power. Hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell, because on this day, we bring Africa's past to the front lines of today.